Hey everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to episode 191 of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. So today we have a return guest for you guys. I think you guys are really going to like it. I get to chat with my good friend Mop again, Andrew Ebers. I honestly always have to look at the name tag on the bottom to remember what his real name is. I only know him as Mop. This is kind of a really good, he was kind of one of the people I had in mind when I wanted to start focusing on doing more episodes of me just talking to my friends and less episodes of me trying to get big names on the podcast. And I really think that this episode does a really good job just showing how much more fun in-person podcasts tend to be. And so, yeah, I really appreciate Mott being on this one. We talk about a lot of different stuff. We talk about his recent local MMA controversy. We talk about him being canceled. We talk about being at UFC events. We talk about hand fighting and grip fighting. We talk about, as usually happens when Mop and I are together, we talked about a million things. And so it's very hard to name this episode. It's very hard to even explain. I think the main thing, though, that we discuss in this one is just the importance of content creation anymore. And we kind of talk about, the idea of being willing to create content and how big of a deal, how big that, whatever you want to call it, that market in the jiu-jitsu and MMA space is going to be in the future, and kind of even how to approach it if that is interesting to you. And so, that's kind of what we get into in this episode. Special quick shout out if you guys are I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show fans or Josh McKinney fans. I have a really fun episode on Thursday coming out for you guys where I tell the story that you may have heard murmurs about at the Nashville Open. I tell the story of your old pal Josh McKinney starting fights and whatnot. You guys know me. So controversial, so aggressive. But I tell that story. I beat a world champion in the story too, spoiler alert. And so I will tell you guys about that whole thing, that whole situation, and what happened from my perspective. And that's pretty much all I have for you guys. Just be on the lookout for that episode. I think you guys are really going to like it. It's one of the first times I ever talk about jiu-jitsu drama on the show, and it's mainly because I'm involved in that jiu-jitsu drama. And so be on the lookout for that one. Without further ado, I really think you guys are going to enjoy my good friend, my good canceled friend, Andrew Ebers, or Mop, as anyone relevant knows him. Mop,
what's going on?
How you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good. Our first show since my cancellation.
Yeah, man. Let's start. I think that's a great place to start because you and I was the main event on the Strange Hands event. You had a purple belt and a brown belt, both on the show, right?
Yeah, Austin was still a purple belt.
Okay.
Now he's a brown belt.
Now he's a brown belt.
Yes.
And so both guys won. Yeah. That was really good. I didn't like that one of them beat one of my guys. Yeah. That wasn't very cool. That might have helped me really affirm how canceled you were.
Yeah.
But, right off of that show, you had just very widely known in the St. Louis area gotten canceled.
Yes.
And so I wanted to make sure you come in with a camera crew like you would do. And I wanted to just really make sure that everyone knew if I was going to be on video that I was only speaking negatively. Yes. That I was making sure that we had separation of our brands. And so let's get into just your videography first, not into the cancellation. Yeah. But I've just noticed that lately, every time I've seen you, you have been having a camera crew around. Yes. And so we can kind of fast forward a little bit and start at, you and I were just on the same card where you're kind of being uncanceled. You're almost uncanceled.
Almost.
And you are on the STL Invitational. One of 5 black belt matches, I think, that were on the STL Invitational. Let's just go with what got you to do that. What made you want to do that match?
Well, Adam forced me. So.
Yep.
I'm getting guys on, right? Austin obviously wanted to do it. He's been competing a lot in a lot of super fight stuff and been upping his competition, one of my brown belts. And, Joel was always competing and it's my job to get him matches, in the jiu-jitsu side. Drew does all the MMA side, but I'm hitting up Adam. I'm like, hey, I want matches for these guys. And at the time, Nick Mateo was still training with us. He's at B team now in Austin, which is awesome for him. But I was trying to get him competitive matches, especially him, because there's not a lot of blue belts that we're going to be able to put up against him outside of worlds or pans that are going to really push him. So I'm hitting up Adam all the time trying to get these matches, and he's like, all right, so I got these guys matches now. What about you? This guy work? And I'm like, I didn't say I was going to compete. What are you doing? And he's like, why not? And then I was thinking about it, and I'm like, actually, I'm not injured right now.
Yeah.
For the first time in 2 years. I'm feeling really healthy. I've got a lot of killers that are competing. My no-gi team's starting to do really well, competing at Worlds and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, well, fine, I'll do it. Find me somebody. So, funny story about this. I have this kid named Austin who trains with me, not my brown belt. He's a blue belt. And, he comes back and forth. And about, 6-7 months ago, he came to me and said that his dad was a black belt in Kansas, and that's where he learned jiu-jitsu. And I was like, oh, yeah, cool. I don't know who he is, but whatever. Well, about a week before, he comes to me and he's like, you're competing against my dad, right?
Oh,
no. And I was like, no way. And neither of us knew. All three of us completely oblivious until they released the posters. And then we were like, oh, wait, we didn't put 2 and 2 together.
That's crazy.
And then I'm going to his Facebook and I'm seeing them together, doing all this stuff together. And stuff.
Were you like, hey, Austin, I'm your coach, okay? You need to tell me what your dad's vulnerabilities are.
Yeah. Well, he came one day and pretty close to the match came in. And he hadn't been in for a while because he went back to Kansas City for break and then came back, when he was back in school or something like that. I can't quite remember exactly what it was. But he was sitting on the mat and I'm like, yo, bro, not allowed to watch this, okay? Get out of here. I was kidding. But, you tell your dad I'm going to go out there and I'm going to wrestle the whole time. He's done for. I'm going to wrestle.
In Indianapolis, I just competed. It was the last tournament of the year for me. Junior Silva was also competing. He's competing in no-gi. I competed in the gi the first day. I'm competing in no-gi the second day. And I'm competing up a weight class just so I don't have to cut weight 2 days in a row. And Junior is in the sauna also cutting weight. He's cutting weight with the guy that I have in the first round. Yeah. The dude had just won weight in open class and the gi. He was just he murdered everybody. And Junior's talking to him and he's like, hey man, just so you know, this Josh guy you have tomorrow, he's wrestled his whole life, man. He's going to come out and he's going to shoot on you. And then Junior tells me, and I hadn't decided how I was going to fight this guy. And Junior calls me as soon as he gets out of the sauna and he's like, hey man, I told him you've wrestled your whole life. You go out, you pull guard, you try to heel hook him. And I'm like, okay, thanks, Junior. Thanks for deciding for us, buddy. He's like, well, he thinks you're going to wrestle, so you can't wrestle now.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, that was it was pretty funny. I even told him, I was like, hey, sorry, if I would have known, I would have asked for someone different, but it's what it is. So.
Yeah, man, that was a fun event, but Adam Sella did the same thing to me. He really did. I couldn't tell you when he asked me if I was cool with being on the show. It was just all of a sudden I was on the show. And then as it kept progressing, I was like, oh yeah, you're the main event. And I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting too, but why? And then they're like, yeah, we don't even have an opponent for you yet, but you're the main event. And I'm like, okay, this is getting weird, guys. What's going on? They're like, well, you've done this once before. You must be a professional at it now.
Yeah.
And it was a great event, man.
It was, man. It was awesome seeing people get that excited about jiu-jitsu, in a super fight kind of way. Everybody was just so into it. It was pretty cool. Seemed pretty dangerous, the setup, but...
I did fall off the stage.
You were the first.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, ever. And it was about a 4-foot drop off that stage. Luckily, we landed on our feet.
Yeah, just graceful.
Yeah, it was
incredibly graceful. You're like a gymnast out there.
Just like I planned it, right?
It's just like you planned it.
But your match, how long had you gone before you... Or since competing in jiu-jitsu?
In jiu-jitsu? God, 5 years.
How long since your last MMA fight?
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years.
Yeah, so it's been a while.
So first time competing at all in 3 years, right? How were the nerves?
They were non-existent.
Yeah.
I would say it wasn't like overwhelming like any other, situation I've ever been in. It wasn't like I was more nervous than I had been for any other time competing. I would say I was less nervous than I would say even my last jiu-jitsu match years ago. Probably I was far less nervous. I knew I had like good guys training with me that I probably had ever been training with me before. Like probably the best guys I've ever had around me to train with, which are my students. But like they were, I just had a bunch of guys get really serious about, specifically no-gi, and training with a lot of really good wrestlers. And I was like, I have a really good game plan to go against this guy. And I knew what I was going to do. What I got him with was exactly what I've been training with for like the past like 6 weeks. It was like that one move, half butterfly guard, scoop grip, outside heel hook. That's what I've been training the whole time. And that's really what I wanted. I wanted more of like a Mikey lock kind of position where I grabbed the heel, but settled for behind.
just had to choose the other submission.
Yeah, just did.
And I can attest. I watched you, or you told me. We pretty much hung out even though it was in secret because you were still canceled. Yeah. You told me, I'm gonna outside heel hook this guy. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And they're like, what are you gonna do to your guy? And I go, I don't really know, but I know for sure I'm not going to fall off the stage. And then that was all we talked about for my match. Yes, exactly. And I did fall off the stage. So it went according to your plan and not according to mine, but we both still won.
Yeah, you looked awesome.
Man,
I thought you looked incredible. You were feeling yourself.
I was.
I could tell.
I really was. I was going. I was being a little more wild man than usual, probably.
Oh, yeah. Paid off.
It did. It did. I knew that. Anytime you have a Daisy Fresh guy, he's going to be have great cardio. Yeah. He's going to be able to go hard. Yeah. And anytime you fight Josh McKinney, he doesn't tend to have great cardio. And so I really made sure that I was going to be in shape for it and just keep on offense the whole time.
I love that. You just, from the second that the match started, you were just go offense.
I was. I had about 27 seconds more of offense in me, and then I would have died of a heart attack. But the crowd would have been going nuts for that too. Yeah. It would have been exciting.
There you go.
It
had a little bit of everything.
It did. And then Josh not only falls off the stage, but he dies at the end of this match. So, kind of like why I brought it up originally, something that was interesting and has been interesting the last few times that we have gone to these events is you've been doing something that so many people talk about doing, but the nerves of doing it, the ability to find consistency in doing it so hard, but you've been bringing a film crew or a videographer to kind of document these things. And it's, we talked about this last time a little bit, but not as much. It seems like you've really been able to be more consistent and produce more content lately. Yeah. But what was your kind of original inspiration for at least starting that?
Man, I couldn't tell you. I'm a diva, I've always wanted to do it. I've always wanted to document everything that we're doing. I figured it would always be beneficial. I was like, our crew is pretty interesting. We got guys going and doing stuff all over the country. At the time, Sam Penice was like doing really well as an amateur. And I was like, oh man, I really wish I could like videotape all these cool things we're doing. We're going to Bahrain. That tournament that I talked about last time I was on here is probably one of the big reasons, right? I was like, man, nobody knows about this thing. If I could just document it and show like how cool this is. So, I tried, but like I couldn't get anybody to actually do the camera work.
Yeah.
And, Ryan just started doing photography, out of nowhere. And then one day I was like, hey, can you shoot some video for me? And we just kind of arranged like a little bit of a deal to where like, I'd pay him like monthly, like a contractor. Every month I pay him. Sometimes I bonus him if he does crazy stuff. I buy all of his stuff when we go places, and he is able to be consistent and do it. So I think that's really what it was, is that I had somebody in my circle that was willing to do it. Probably similar to you in this podcast. You got to have somebody. Until you have that, I was buying cameras. I was trying to get people to record sparring because I knew that if we could record stuff, it would be really good from a marketing perspective, right? For my gym, and that was the biggest reason, right? Like I wanted to promote my gym better, and I was like, Instagram and Facebook in terms of marketing is where it's at, and YouTube and stuff like that. So I knew that would be the best avenue to grow my gym. I just didn't know how to do it. And then Ryan comes along, and then I'm like, here you go. I'm going to pay you monthly to do this. And at first he was doing all the editing for the video. So he was doing less shooting and he was doing editing, but then I took over the editing and he just has to shoot now. So I get so much more content. He goes everywhere and he loves it. Absolutely loves it. And it helps him because now, he goes to Revive all the time and he does all the marketing stuff for Revive. And he's doing it for other people as well. So, he's getting a lot of exposure and that's what he wants to do. He wants to videotape. And then, he also gets to train for free and stuff like that. So, yeah, that was the big reason, but it's been a lot of fun and it has been wildly successful. There's a direct correlation between when I brought Ryan on and the growth of my gym. Like we were doing okay, but then I brought Ryan on, and then ever since I brought Ryan on, my numbers in terms of like student, like not even retention, like keeping people around, it's all just gone up. Like getting students and retaining them, it's been one of the best things that I've ever done, and it's had the biggest impact. Even bigger than being like on a successful team with like really good fighters. Like this has been it. Like people seeing what you're doing every day, and seeing the competitions and seeing like the group environment, and people actually watch the stuff on YouTube. So whatever, so
and it's entertaining. It's really fun to watch. You do need to chill with all that paying your videographer and editor stuff while Bryce sits in the corner over there. I can feel him staring at me. Oh. And me and Bryce are on thin ice anyway right now, man. He's a questionable guy, man. We went to Pans a few weeks ago, and he couldn't have been more anti-Josh McKinney and more anti-Head Not HQ. Really? It was bizarre, man. I don't get that guy. But anyway.
You could just hire Ryan,
I could.
Give him your number.
Yeah, I could. We'll talk later. But I feel like Bryce is significantly cheaper than Ryan is.
He is.
Anyway, we'll stop insulting Bryce, at least for now. Have you noticed, so you said you've kind of noticed increase in your gym. Mm-hmm. What are some other things that you have noticed, if anything, from starting to document this stuff and starting to kind of create an audience like you have on YouTube?
That's the biggest one has definitely been growth. But I would say that, my guys are definitely, they train a little bit harder when Ryan's around. Yeah. Train a little, just a little bit harder when Ryan's around. And, at first it was like awkward for them when they were getting recorded, like to have like, Ryan's here and they're talking to each other. Cause that's the coolest part about it. A lot of times is like the interpersonal, like relationship stuff. And then you throw the fighting on top of that. It makes really good drama. But now they're just like, that camera can be right there, and it's like Ryan's not even there. He's like invisible.
That's cool.
He's a quiet guy, so easy. But
he is. He was sneaking around me when we were at the Invitational. I'm like, man, this dude he's filming stuff. I need to really watch myself right now. I've got a brand to keep up, man. You could get canceled. I could get canceled easily.
And I think it was also a response to my cancellation, probably bringing Ryan around. I got canceled. And I need to document things from now on.
Yep. I didn't say that. I have a videographer here with me at all times.
Yes. I'll go talk to Jesse and be like, Jesse, Ryan's here. We can talk.
You need to get like a stenographer, like they have in court, to transcribe every word that is said. That's true. And like, hey, play back the minutes. Yeah. That would be the move next. I think
it would be. But
Bryce is looking for a new job, so.
I'm going to start a podcast soon.
Yeah. Dang it.
Shoot.
This is all not going according to plan now.
Yeah. But but it's been amazing because Ryan's helped out so much, and it does cost me every month, but man, there's few things that I've done in my tenure as a businessman that I feel like it's better than what I did with Ryan.
Really?
He's very valuable to me. Yeah, extremely valuable. I take care of him. So my gym's had like a huge increase. And the marketing also is huge because it's just like Facebook and Instagram, you know, it's so cheap to market on there and you can do so much. But if you have the content also, because like, you know, I have the YouTube show that I do, but that's not really what's bringing it in. It's the clips that I put on Facebook and on Instagram that Ryan's taken that just really take off.
That's really interesting.
Students. Yep.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think I notice, you know, man, I just noticed that when it comes to just trying to build a brand, when people start to try to build a brand, there is something entertaining and exciting about it. And just like you were saying with your fighters, like, yeah, they train a little harder when Ryan's there.
Yeah.
And that's really important because when you have fighters, like I know it's always about being tough and being a great fighter and challenging yourself and all those things, but people aren't watching unless it's entertaining. And if people aren't watching, you're not getting paid. And so like being able to be entertaining and to be a showman and to learn how to do that and to learn how to be around cameras and stuff and to not just be around cameras the first time you're fighting at a big event and that starts to put pressure on you or make you worried. I think that just kind of learning to be in that environment and learning to be a showman along with a fighter can be kind of important too.
Very much so. You got to have people excited to come watch and see you. And like, you got to have people excited to like see a gym, like all these people training and it's like cool shots and like, you know, they're talking with each other and they get along really well. They're making jokes and then people are going to watch that and be like, oh, I want to jump in there and do that too. You know, a lot of times, especially when young people specifically, you know, a lot of times they're just looking for that outlet to like hang out with people, to have friends. Like maybe they never were really into sports in high school, or maybe they were into sports in high school and now they don't have that anymore. You know, I've got a bunch of guys now that I literally went to high school with that wrestled that now they're all training with me. So it's all been from, you know, just putting that marketing out there and showing that we have a community environment, like a wolf pack, everybody we call it, you know, in there. So it's been pretty exciting and pretty awesome and really good for my wallet as well. So.
That's cool, man. And so the gym is like kind of how we're hinting. The gym has gotten to a point where it was time to move.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually had you stop telling me about it when we were in here. Yeah. And actually, I think I had you stop telling me about it at the Invitational, too, because I wanted to hear about it on the podcast. Yeah. And so kind of give me at least, what point do you say, was it like just your lease is up? Or what point do you say, okay, it's time to move. We need a bigger facility. We need to go to this next place. What point is that for you? So, yeah, our lease was up. And that was the biggest driving factor. And we could have signed for another year. And I probably could have sat there for another year because I was actually doing pretty well money-wise. My overhead was so low. But, like, I saw, like, a cap, you know. I couldn't really teach kids. That was the biggest one because I had all these advanced adult classes going on during primetime kid hours. Yeah. And, like, I was doing my kids earlier in the day, and it's just like I wasn't building any sort of youth program. Just didn't have the space. So I was like, this has to happen. And we went through a couple options. You know, at first I was going to kind of like rebrand everything and make a big one with like an investor. And then that didn't pan out. And then Drew found this spot in Lake St. Louis in this industrial building. And it was, at first I was like, what is this? Like, I don't know if this is going to work. You know, it's in this like, it's not in an industrial area, but it looks like an industrial place. Yeah. But like I walk in and it's in Lake St. Louis. There's nice neighborhoods everywhere around it. It's right off Highway Inn and Lake St. Louis Boulevard. And it was huge. And it's like I think altogether it's 5,300 square feet altogether. To put Lake St. Louis into context for someone who doesn't know, who doesn't listen, imagine what I described Granite City to you guys on the podcast. It's the opposite of that. So just the complete opposite of that. That's what Lake St. Louis is. Go ahead and think like the Clayton of St. Charles. That's kind of what you think of it as. Like it's like Chesterfield across the river. You know, it's a really nice area, and a lot of the average income there is like $150K a year. I think. To put that into perspective, the average income household in Granite City is $52,000. So closer to the actual average of the country. No, this is like way, we're talking 1%ers kind of deals. You know, your doctors, your lawyers,
you know, and they've all got families. So it was a no-brainer when I went to it. I was like, this is a no-brainer. And it's a completely open area for, I think, like 4,000 square feet of it.
Oh, that's
awesome. The rest of it is offices and stuff like that. So we just bought the front area. Like, it literally looks like you walk in and you're like at an office building or like a reception at like a dentist office or a doctor's office. I think it used to actually be a BJC or something like that.
All right.
I'm not sure. So there's a lot of, or no, it was an insurance company actually. So there's a lot of offices. So we're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff with that. We're going to do a podcast studio. We're working on doing like a whole recovery room, like with like a cold plunge, sauna, and hot tub.
Dude.
We've got enough space for it. And then we've also got a space that we're going to be trying to bring in a massage therapist and a chiropractor all in-house. So that my guys don't have to go anywhere to do anything other than just come train, and then they can recover, and working on doing a full-size gym too. So it's pretty exciting, but it's huge.
There's no way Bryce doesn't jump ship. There's no way. I doubt that he'll finish this episode.
Yeah.
I doubt he'll make it through. He might head over. What time does training start there on Saturdays?
10 o'clock.
Oh, man, you missed
Saturdays,
it. You missed it.
Yeah.
That saved me. At least he'll finish out this one, man.
Yeah, I'll finish out this one.
I might be going with him though. I don't know.
But it's been awesome. Obviously my overhead went way up. So
Yeah.
I'm feeling that, but it's really exciting. Most exciting thing I have going on right now. We're about to add more mat space to what we already have, and my gym's been packed every single night. So, you know, it's been an exciting couple of months. Very stressful.
What date? When did you guys move in? How long have you been in this building?
We technically moved in January 1st, and then we opened the new facility February 1st.
Okay.
So actually, I think it was more like January, like 28th or 29th that we moved in. But late January, we moved in there. Then we got a bunch of new mats, and we're full steam ahead.
And you're still, you're still just getting settled in that space.
It's
I'm
not
sure.
finished at all. Not even close.
When do you guys have a timetable? You think it'll get finished?
I'm hoping completely finished end of May, hopefully. So like our front area, we're trying to get up and running by the end of this week or next week. And then our new matted space is probably going to be a little bit longer than that. So, but then we'll be pretty up and running. And then hopefully the recovery rooms comes. That's going to be the last thing we do, but everything else probably pretty quick. One of my business partners is a contractor, so it all goes pretty quick. I don't have to wait for anything. He just goes in, he does it, and then we're good to go.
That's nice.
Yeah.
We also were just talking about the possibility of the Mop podcast.
Oh, yeah.
The Wolves Den podcast. What would it be called?
Not sure yet. We're thinking of it being me and Sean.
Okay.
We're thinking about me and Sean being the podcast. I might do a separate one as well. We're definitely going to do one, me and Sean, and that'll be pretty exciting.
That would be cool.
We'll let him pick the name on that one. So.
As we, even though we actually haven't even gotten to any of it at all, really intended to talk to you about coaching.
Yeah.
And so we'll definitely get to that at some point probably.
Yeah.
But if not, it would be really fun to have you and Sean on sometime and do a coach-student or coach-athlete one. That would be really fun.
Yeah, we can do that whenever.
But if it was you and Sean, what would be what's the sniper and the mop?
Yeah, something like that.
Like what would be the name?
I don't know. We haven't figured that. We haven't gotten that far yet, but that's a good. We could just do that one.
Yeah,
I could pitch that to him.
You ever hear of Chat GPT?
Yeah.
We could have you a name in 5 minutes.
Could. Yeah.
Name, title, logo, everything.
Yeah.
First episode name, all of it.
We don't have to be on it. Do it for us. Just take our voices and do it for us.
Yep, I like that.
It's scary stuff.
I like that.
Yeah.
So let's that's really a lot of stuff we were talking about was you as someone trying to brand themselves as a businessman, which is a role that you're assuming more of now.
Yeah.
Would you say that role has kind of opened up a little more for you now that you're not in the professional athlete role as much?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely had to make a decision to favor one or the other.
Yeah.
I still want to compete, especially now that I'm healthy, because that was a big reason I wasn't competing, is because I just was not healthy. I was, you know, 2 knees, like, no, 1 knee surgery, you know, broken ribs, several broken noses, nose surgery. So like it was a tough like 2-3 years of me not really being able to train at all like I wanted to, and just any time that I got back hurt again. So, you know, I concentrated more on the business aspect, and it was like, okay, the more I concentrate on this, the better my gym does. It's just clear, clear as day, that if I focus less on myself and more on the people around me and the other individuals that need me, we do really well. But at the same time, I feel like that, you know, the match that I just did helped me out a lot. The energy at the gym was just so much better. It's so much better when they're competing alongside their coach and stuff like that. My students loved it. The guys that didn't get on the card with me were really upset about it.
Yeah.
They really wanted to be on there with me and have a whole team thing. And like in my second professional fight, we had like 6 guys on the card, right? And top down, and the energy from that was just amazing. You know, they knew I was competing. They like seeing, you know, practice what you preach kind of thing. And, you know, in MMA, it's especially important because you're demanding a lot from somebody, and they need to see that you would be able to do it too. And that was big. But yeah, the more I moved away from active competition, and the more I gravitated towards coaching and concentrating on the business, the better both have done. My students have done better, and my business has done better. But I do think that, you know, that there's a lot of coaches out there that are active competitors, and that's one of the upsides of it, is the energy in the room is so much better when your coach is competing.
So do you, this is kind of just a little step back, do you think that there was any correlation for you between those injuries and you trying to be a coach and an athlete at the same time?
Yes, definitely. Especially one of my worst injuries happened because I got off of a plane after traveling all day. We're talking like a 6-7 hour flight, you know, all together with layovers. And then I went right in and sparred. Sparred with Colin Parr, right? And
freaking Colin, man.
Yeah, it's his fault. I think he did it on purpose.
I think he actually brags about it when you're not around.
Yeah. No, I'm looking at you. I know you're watching. I know you're gonna watch this. Yeah. So I shot a takedown, and he sprawled and and we just kept sparring, right? And then the round ended, and then all of a sudden my back, neck, and shoulder just didn't work anymore for like 3 months. It was really bad. But it's from me being hunched over so much. You know, just hunched over on the plane for hours. And, you know, that was like the 3rd or 4th flight I had taken that month, because, you know, some of my guys are competing at higher levels, and they're going out of town. LFA, I had 2 LFAs and a UFC in 1 month.
Yeah.
You know, it was brutal on my body just to travel, and, you know, getting beat up by them on warm-ups and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think there was a direct correlation between that. But, you know, I think, you know, my lifestyle also, I'd made some lifestyle changes to go more alongside competing.
Yeah.
You know, not as many late nights, you know, diet changes, stuff like that.
You look like you. How much? What do you weigh right now?
I'm in like the high 80s.
Yeah.
High 180s right now.
And when you were fighting at 70?
I did my first professional fight at 160, and then one at 155, which I missed weight, which is really unfortunate, and then 2 others at 160. So generally hovering around under 70 at like 55, trying to get to 55. So hopefully, you know, I want to do another one. I've got some stuff on the table working for the June 24th card, Ballpark Village. They were looking for matches for me, so I'm hoping I can get on that one. But I'm actually I'm in a much better weight to make the weight now, so I'm happy about that. So 155 will probably actually be where I'm going to do this one.
So when you are when you're competing, when you're fighting, what do you know, as a coach, what is the amount of value that you are putting into your fighting? Like, or not value, what is the amount of, would you say, here's a different way to ask this and can be more specific. Would you say you're getting ready for this fight, and then Sean has a fight in the UFC 2 weeks before?
Yeah.
What are you more focused on? What are your thoughts more towards? What are you feeling? What's on your mind?
It would be Sean first, definitely. that would be it. I would definitely be going to that event.
Yeah.
Definitely putting all my effort into coaching that event. I might even tell them that I can't do the fight.
Yeah.
In that situation. Yeah. So if that tells you anything
Yeah.
about it. Yeah. My students do come first, and the angle that I love, first of all, obviously you got to love to do it. Like I love to fight. I love to compete, things like that. I love to train. The training is just the most fun thing for me, and training for a fight is extremely fun because you're working super hard every day, super focused, doing what you love, and you get in really good shape.
Yeah.
It always feels great. Like it's crazy that, like I'm so guilty of this, of like getting out of shape. It's just like the food tastes good, the sitting around feels good until it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it feels terrible. But being in shape never feels bad.
That's very true.
Always feel good.
That's very true.
You're always in a much better mood and everything like that. So that part's great. But the angle for my fighting comes from like, I love to do it, and it's great promotion for my gym and what I'm doing, because I go out there, they can see that the coach knows what they're doing. There's a lot of guys out there that like, maybe they'll get good guys, but that could just be because they have good athletes. And then people look at it and they're like, oh, is that guy really that good of a coach? You've never even seen him fight, never even seen him do anything, and I want to go out there and I don't want to be that guy. I want to show my students I know what I'm doing. I can get you to this level, professional 4-0 athlete, regional, but still I can train guys, to get to a decent level. And I've already got proof with some of the guys that I train that I can do it. So it's more about that than anything else. Like I'm not really looking as much, like, okay, am I going to make this UFC run? If it were to happen, fantastic. Like if I were to win really, really spectacular fashion and get hit up for something like that, absolutely I'd do it. But what's my angle for doing it? It's still for my students and my gym more than anything else. So that's number one. And I try to make that the centerpiece of pretty much everything that I do. Especially now with all the big moves and big changes, I feel like there's huge opportunity for me in the spot that I'm at right now. So I'm trying to just run with it.
I like that.
As hard as I can in that direction. So.
I like. Hey everybody, I have a deal that you absolutely do not want to miss for the entire month of May. That is from now until whenever May ends. I don't know if there's 30, 31 days in May, but I know it ends on June 1st. And we are offering at simplifyingjujitsu.com this massive discount. We are doing 50% off the entire store with promo code NEWSTUDIO. The reason that we're doing that is because obviously we're putting out so much more content now because we have a new studio to do it in, and we are so excited about Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu Studios 2.0, and we want you to be excited about it too, because it will benefit you guys in the future as we're able to start to pushing out more content. And what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna have this 50% off the entire store. So if you've ever wanted to get Mastering the Duck Guard by yours truly, Josh McKinney, or STDs for BJJ by Kyle Watson, that is Simplifying Takedowns for BJJ by Kyle Watson, or the Star Spangled Spider Guard by Nick Sanders, or even Train Until 60 and Beyond by Steve McKinney. Any of those that you want will be available for 50% off with promo code NEWSTUDIO. That's all one word, NEWSTUDIO at simplifyingjujitsu.com. And this is only going on for the month of May. Let's get back into the episode. That there's a point in the, you ever read the book Green Lights?
Yes, I have.
There's a point he talks about running downhill, and that's, when you're chasing success, hopefully there comes a point where you start finding yourself going downhill when it comes to success, and you're just grabbing up every opportunity. But he said you don't want to stop in those situations. He goes, when I was a Texas kid that I'm getting all these movie offers and I'm making all this money, he's like, well, I was telling myself, hey, Texas kids where I come from don't get these opportunities. I shouldn't almost be allowed to do these things. He's like, I was almost self-sabotaging because I was afraid to. He's like, but now I know it. Got to run downhill in those situations. Yeah. And this is, again, a step back, but you were just talking about the energy that it takes to coach events and the energy that it takes to be a coach when you have your highest level athletes competing in whatever.
Yep.
And so, maybe I'll ask like this: you have Sean's in the UFC on a Saturday night, and you have all that goes with that, and that's going to be you guys get in on like in Vegas. You guys get in on what day?
Like on a Tuesday.
Okay, so you guys
Monday
get in
or
on a
Tuesday.
Tuesday, and then you leave on a Monday.
Oh no, Sean likes to get out of there, so we leave the day after the fight.
Okay, so you leave on a Sunday.
Yeah, and I like to get out of there too.
So you guys get out of there Tuesday to Sunday. Monday at the gym. 1 to 100, what percent is your energy? What percent is your mental, not your physical, but your mental gas tank as a coach, as a human being, 1 to 100?
All I want to do is go right back to what I was just doing that week with somebody else too. You know?
Yeah.
Like, that's where my mind is. I'm like, I got to get one of these guys there so that I got like 20 of these, because it's always the best experience. It's always amazing. And obviously, the more guys I have there, the better the gym's going to do, you know, the more exposure. But yeah, it's like, it's such an adrenaline rush and the energy's so good. And I'm just like, man, I want to get more of these guys. And I got guys that are so close right now. I got Jordan Howard. He's super close. Danny, he's super close to like right on the cusp of breaking into that arena. And, you know, now we got David Evans training with us too, and he just fought on PFL. That was an amazing experience too, because we were in Orlando studios, you know, and Ray Sifo and like all these UFC guys just all around us, former champions everywhere. So it's exciting. So any big event, you know, not even just the UFC, LFA, Bellator, or not as much Bellator, but
Yeah, dude, I've been backstage at Bellator. I've cornered people at Bellator events.
yeah. Well, on the undercard on a Bellator, you don't necessarily have to be a hot prospect.
Yeah.
You know, just fill it with the local guys. But LFA, you pretty much have to be a prospect to be on that, you know, especially on the main card, which, you know, Danny's been on the main card of those things. So the energy is always amazing. PFL energy is amazing. And just after I got back, win or lose, energy is always good for everybody, because they just saw that there's a possibility that any of them could end up there, you know. And, you know, that just goes for the competitors, you know, but most of my gym is not active competitors. They're just people training and having fun. They do some boxing, some kickboxing. They jump into some jiu-jitsu, but that's the bulk of my gym now. But even them, they're always excited when big things like that happen. You know, they hate that I'm gone for a week, but when I get back, it's just like energy's good. You know? That really comes from any big fight night. Local fight nights are like that too. Like, when you like we touched on this earlier, when you win a local fight, you are the king of the city.
You are the king of this. You get the key to the city for a night.
Yes. And if I have like 4 or 5 guys on a card and they all win, the energy in the gym's amazing for months. Like, everybody's training hard. You know, the local ones especially. We go out of town sometimes, you know, it goes through the cracks, but yeah, we've had some big stuff recently. Energy's been amazing.
Dude, that's cool.
Yes, every time.
We've been on a string of L's lately, actually. Me and Bryce in particular. Sorry to bring you back up, Bryce. But yeah, we've been, you know, but we've just been getting after it a lot.
That's what happens.
You're gonna lose sometimes,
especially jiu-jitsu. You know?
Oh
like,
yeah.
It's just like you don't even. Most of the time, you don't even have any say who you're going up against. You know what I mean? It's just boom, I'm going up against that guy. All right, well, I have a few days to prepare for whoever I'm going up against. And you got to prepare for everyone in the bracket. And it's just different. An MMA fight, your coach is going to say yes or no to the guy that you're fighting. You're going to get 6 weeks usually to prepare for it. And then you go out there. And that's why, you know, you see guys with better records. But in jiu-jitsu, it can be all over the place.
It really is. It really is. And that's like the fun of getting to compete in jiu-jitsu is that, like, anybody shows up that day. And it doesn't matter. They could have sucked their whole career at this belt, but if they're just on that day, they could win a big tournament, you know, because you fight the first seed the first round and you can beat him, then you're the first seed, you know? And so I just think that, you know, like that's one of the most fun parts about competing. Do you have any plans, any thoughts that you will kind of get into competing in jiu-jitsu a little more?
Yeah, I mean, especially after the last one, I had so much fun.
Yeah.
I had so much fun. The energy was so cool, and everybody was really pumped about jiu-jitsu, and it was a rule set that I liked, you know. So, I mean, like I've said before, I don't really train in the gi a whole lot, so that's probably not in the future as much. But in terms of no gi with full rules, like I want to do that way more.
Yeah,
especially after what I just did. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
you know, and the guys in jiu-jitsu are way cooler towards each other. So
they are, man. That was even before matches, after matches. It's just so much easier because you're not gonna have to punch somebody in the face.
Yeah,
you know, like I don't know if I could be super cool with somebody that I knew I was gonna have to punch in the face, and they were gonna do the same to me.
Yep.
You know, I'd be like kind of offended.
I will say this though: after you've been punched in the face several times, back and forth with a guy, you always hug and you always like him afterwards.
Yeah,
it's a lot of there is some respect to it that goes in, but everybody's nice beforehand also in jiu-jitsu. So it's like you can be talking to your guy on the mat like 2 minutes before you guys go compete. No hard feelings.
But 2 weeks later, when you and that guy just punched each other in the face, I feel like your feelings towards him start to become hostile sometimes again.
Depends on if you win or lose.
With jiu-jitsu, a lot of times winning and losing is just so decisive.
Yeah.
It's so like, this dude was just way better than me.
Yeah.
In this match, we could have repeated this match 10 times that day and he would have just kept beating me, or vice versa.
You're likely to compete again.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, I'm going to get him next time.
Yeah.
Rematches in MMA are far more rare.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so once you lose, it's kind of like, okay, I've lost to that guy forever a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You have to earn your way back. When in jiu-jitsu, you can just enter the same tournament. And then, you know, I had one guy one of my older students travel to 3 IBJJF tournaments, right? And compete against the same guy in the first round all 3 times.
I've had like, especially, it's only happened when it's been bad. I've never been on the good side of it, but I've had like show up to the tournament and I've got the toughest guy in my weight class that day and lose to him. And then the first round of the open class, I have him again. And I'm like, why do I have to fight this guy twice? And like, I go to a tournament, pay money, pay $1,000 for the whole event, compete twice, but lose to the same guy 2 times. And I was like, dude, if I could have just fought anybody else, that would have been exciting. That would have been so much better.
Yeah, it is exciting. But earlier point, I want to do more jiu-jitsu for sure.
Yeah. What do you think, just kind of getting back to the original idea, just getting back to coaching, has there been anything that you have, I know you're a training method, coaching, technique, concept nerd like I am.
Yeah.
Is there anything new that you guys have been doing that you could tell us about that wouldn't be super secret, just in your training, in your method for getting people better at being fighters?
Number one is hand fighting.
Hand fighting?
Biggest thing. And if you watch my match, it's literally the whole entirety of the match is hand fighting until the finish. A lot of hand fighting, a lot of foot fighting, like foot sweeping and off balancing techniques, and a lot of getting off the bottom.
Yeah.
Getting guys ready to do ADCC oriented stuff. So it's been like, you know, turtling to standing, defending back control, stuff like that. Like, you know, almost like fighting out of bad spots.
Yeah.
And then turning them into good spots. A good one that I've been going with also. But yeah, those have been the big things. And also, I mean, my gym's so big on leg locks that it's center point of a lot of our training is always on leg locks. You know, like you talk about strange hands, like both my guys won. It's like, what did they win with? They both won with leg locks. What did I win with? Leg lock. You know, Austin would have won with a leg lock, but he thought he was allowed to do leg locks because he's a brown belt. Because like brown belts can do leg locks, but he was competing against a purple belt. So he gets on the stage, and they're like, no leg locks, and he's like, what? It's all I've been training.
Yeah. So like, shoot, I don't know anything else.
What did Joel win with? Leg lock. Yeah, so it's like it's such a huge part of our game, and it's honestly, it's like the entry point of it. It's like we'd have an entry point of like, okay, we're good at leg locks, and then there's so much more to it. But I feel like a lot of schools are still lagging behind a little bit on the defensive aspect to a lot of these leg lock positions, like, you know, cross ashi and even you know, variations of 50-50 where they're having problems getting out when they're or dealing with the entries, you know, because the entries, when you get really good at leg lock entries, it can be really easy to get to the position to leg lock somebody.
Yeah.
And if they don't know how to defend that, that's when the problems come. So that's our focus competitively. But I mean, really, we've been working a lot of wrestling and stuff like that also in there.
It's super interesting that you say that.
Yeah.
You know who Chris Paines is?
I don't think so.
So he's one of my buddies. He's don't let this deter you. He's from England.
Oh,
he lives in he's British.
Oh, we've been talking about this.
Yeah, and so
they lost 300 years ago.
Yeah.
Years ago.
well, anyway, he came and taught a seminar at my gym. He always is a very big conceptual teacher.
Yeah.
He always has something different. One of his big things is always hand fighting. Has always been you're not good at jiu-jitsu because you don't hand fight enough or you don't understand hand fighting enough. He's like, you're only these underhooks are the only things that control you, and the only way that you lose these is if you don't hand fight, if you don't know how to hand fight. And so he actually came with this new idea that no one should ever play guard ever. Yeah. His idea was you should always be trying to stand up, and that should be like the basis of your guard. And he showed some different concepts. I'll tell you about them off camera because I can't be giving away this dude's seminar secrets. He charges for this stuff. But that were super, super simple. And I'm sure that you and I, as we talk, would probably match up a lot on the concepts. But just back to that original idea that hand fighting being the most important thing, because that's something I agree with. And the gi might call it grip fighting, but it is the same exact idea. If you had to, Webster's dictionary calls you and they're like, hey, jiu-jitsu's big enough and you're in charge of making the description for what hand fighting is. What's in those couple sentences of what hand fighting is?
Well, it's, how would I put it? I would say hand fighting is how I am able to get to every single position that I want. It's making incremental progress towards the position that I want to go to, towards a leg, towards a hand, towards an underhook, right? And man, I just can't stress the importance of it. There's a time in my jiu-jitsu where I wasn't hand fighting, and then I was, and they're just like, the difference is astronomical. Astronomical how much more successful I am. Mm-hmm. If you want to get in on entries to the legs, if you want to get entries to the upper body or lower body, hand fighting is everything. So I would say it's just the system from the system that I use to go from point A to point B and get what I want. There's no other way around it.
That makes sense. That's like it's like a vehicle to get to
transportation system.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's like, I always explain it as hand fighting is solving problems with your hands, right?
That's a much better way to put it.
Then jiu-jitsu understanding becomes a matter of, okay, or grappling understanding becomes a matter of how well do you know what the goal is? Because if you know what the goal is and you know how to solve problems with your hands, then that's all you're doing is using and then you're, like we said, footwork too, using your angles, using your legs to be able to solve problems too.
Yep. And that's really what jiu-jitsu is.
Right? It really is.
Yeah. I feel like people do techniques a lot when they're training. Like they'll do individual techniques. Like they'll be like, okay, I'm good at ashigarami positions. Like I'm really good at single leg X guard, and they'll train doing moves from that position, and maybe they'll even work some entries into that position, like from half guard or guard or any of these things. But you don't even get to that point if you're not good at hand fighting. Mm-hmm. Like if you can't hand fight, you're not getting anywhere. And I think a lot of times in jiu-jitsu, you get guys who aren't both good at hand fighting. Like they're both bad at hand fighting. So they'll go into those positions right away because they're like, oh, we're going right to that position. Whereas and then you get the one guy who just hand fights his way out of everything, mm-hmm. right? And you just can't do anything. And you're like, why can't I get to the positions I want to get to? Well, it's because he's hand fighting you and you're not hand fighting back. Mm-hmm. And, you same with feet, using hooks and butterfly hooks and, at the bottom of your foot to post and stuff like that. But it's all the same. You can't just train each position individually, and then just forget that there's the way to get there is all through hand fighting. Talk about it all day.
Yeah, and like I think a back like a kind of an original idea of hand fighting that's really, really simple to understand is what jiu-jitsu and what grappling looks like when you can't hand fight. And so the Diaz brothers always will interlock fingers with people in MMA. But if you ever watch their jiu-jitsu, they would do the exact same thing. And that's a grappling idea. And basically what you're saying is, I'm not going to hand fight. And so we're both going to gain one grip that doesn't, it's pretty much a 50-50 grip. And then we're just going to fight for angles and distance. And so I think that when you look at guys like that and like they figured out a way to not have to hand fight, oh, we'll just interlock fingers. You can't solve problems with your hands anymore because we're giving up our hands. Can you solve problems with your legs? Can you solve problems with your angles? And so I always think like, when you are seeing high-level hand fighting, one of the simplest things to get somebody to understand is if you were a beginner, if he was just really good at grabbing my hands, and while I was trying to grab his collars, while I was trying to grab his pants, it's going to be very hard for me to jiu-jitsu him. And I think that that's like an entry point for people is like, okay, you want to learn how to grip fight? Feel what jiu-jitsu feels like when it doesn't exist, and you just grab somebody's hand and they have your hand. And like, you just do jiu-jitsu from there. Yeah, you can't do anything.
I mean, I use that a lot too. The pinochle grip.
Yep.
We're both gonna try and break each other's hand real quick.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a good little stall. Like if a guy's hand fighting you really hard and you go bam. Use it when I get annoyed. Like guys are like out gripping me, and I just go bam, and then it just kind of makes us have to stop for a second, reset the grips again.
So here's a weird one. I use it or it's a fun one. I use it when I notice somebody's right-handed because I'm right-handed. And so if I interlock right hand to my left hand, I'm giving up my non-dexterous hand for your dexterous hand. And so I do that a lot, and then I run a lot of angles to that side and create a lot of hand movement with my right arm, and they're trying to defend with their left arm. And I can tell it's like people think that, oh my gosh, this guy's so good at this. And I'm like, if I did it the opposite, you would just kill me in this position because you'd be using your better hand. Yeah, it's weird though. And I actually picked it up because my dad is left-handed. So there's this Gordon thing that I noticed is if you ever watch how he comes in, a lot of times he likes to come in, most guys are both right leg lead. And he will come in right leg lead and he will connect left hand to right hand first because I want to collar tie with my right hand and he'll grab my same thing, non-dexterous hand, right? And then he wins that inside collar tie with his dexterous hand. And I do that to everybody once I started picking up that he was doing that. And I'm like, this is so easy. Well, one day I'm rolling with my 62, 63-year-old dad, and he's beating me on the collar tie. And I just am like getting through rolling with good black belts and good wrestlers, and nobody's beating me on the collar tie. And I can't comprehend what it is. And I was like, oh, he's left-handed. And so it's his left hand versus my right hand. I thought I was just really good. I've just been beating everybody because they can't use their left hand very well. And so, that's a fun concept to play with.
But very overlooked, I think, in a lot of ways. I think in the gi it's probably less overlooked because it's so natural just to grab and grip. And then in no-gi, it's like the one thing that I dislike when people say about no-gi is that like, I don't have anything to grab. And I'm like, what do you mean? You got a wrist, you got a knee, you got an ankle. There's all these little joints on pretty much any joint you can grab. Little bone sticking out, So yeah, there's plenty to grab, but it's overlooked because it doesn't seem like there's a lot to grab, but it's super important just to constantly be gripping, getting 2-on-1s, collar ties, like you said. Our wrestling coach, he's not a wrestling coach anymore. Coach Rob, shout out Coach Rob, wherever you are. He's like the best high school wrestling coach in the country. He coaches in Pennsylvania for basically the high school equivalent of Penn State. I think not this year, but the year before they won nationals and they won state and they won everything. And he's like the biggest thing in wrestling right now is hand fighting collar ties, hand fighting collar ties, hand fighting collar ties. And in Pennsylvania, they structure their whole program around defending the collar tie. They don't even collar tie anymore. They just react to collar ties and stuff like that. So hopefully we see some more progressions like that in jiu-jitsu too.
Man, I really do think that that's got to be the direction, just because so many people that I know that I enjoy talking to about jiu-jitsu concepts and what's new for them and what they're enjoying using, it just seems to always come up.
Yeah,
you know, you just don't. So I had really another point for me where it kind of shifted and I started realizing the importance of just hand fighting was same thing, wrestling. One of my black belts wrestled, was super, super good wrestler. Was a combat wrestling Hall of Famer, really, really good jiu-jitsu, but really, really great stand-up. And one day I'm like, hey, I want you to, like, for the next couple weeks, just show conceptual wrestling. And he's like, what does that even mean? I was like, just explain things that we don't understand, because he'll always give me an idea about wrestling and he'll be like, yeah, super basic stuff. And then he'll show me and I'll go, Eric, I've never done a wrestling class. I've never wrestled in my life. So when you're saying basic stuff, I don't know that that's basic stuff. I didn't do Pee-wee wrestling. And he's like, oh, okay. So he starts to show that, and he spends 4 weeks with us hand fighting. Like, hey, this is what you should be doing. Then we would ask about guard pulling. You should hand fight better. We would ask about anti-guard pulling. You should hand fight better. Every single thing was hand fighting, until one day he comes in, and this is where I'm going with this, because I think this is the next concept that will be big and widely understood, and we've actually talked about it before, so I know that this is something you think about a lot too, but it's not talked a lot about in grappling still, but distance. Yeah. He comes in and he says, all right, Josh, grab my collars. He goes, get your best grips. And I like, okay, so he's teaching class. I get my best grips on his gi. And he goes, grips don't matter. And this is after he has spent a month grip fighting with us. And he says, distance matters. Yeah. And he goes, now do something to me, Josh. And he played distance, he played angle, and I didn't do anything to him. And I was trying really hard. And then we were all like mind blown a second time. And so I really think that is what grappling is. And you even attribute distance to one of the most, or I think you say the most important
part of MMA.
Yeah, the most important part of MMA.
It's the most important part of any combat sport. Anything is the distance between the two guys, how to control it.
Mm-hmm. And so in between that distance is hand fighting. Yeah. And so, like, kind of to me, that is as boiled down and as simply as you can explain fighting, besides what you see, because we all see strikes and we all see, big takedowns. We all see arm bars. We see those things. But everything in between is really an understanding of distance, control, and hand fighting. Yep. And that's it. Yep. Even when you look at the idea of creating angles in a fight, that is the same thing. It's an idea of distance, is understanding those angles. So as you get more conceptual in your teaching, because it seems like you do. It seems like you and I both kind of follow a pretty similar teaching journey. Yeah. What are some practices that you've noticed have helped your students really be able to understand these things better?
Well, first, in my gi class specifically, we grip fight for like the first couple of minutes. That's something relatively recently new. It's like I just have them get with a partner and just fight for grips. And I'm like, you're not really fighting for takedowns. You guys are just getting used to this is what we do at the beginning of every match. We're just sitting here fighting for grips. Same thing with my no-gi guys when we start off with like wrestling and just, like light drilling wrestling back and forth with, hand fight, just to get them used to the hand fighting over and over again. And then, like I said, just explain to them that this is everything. Like, I don't start a class or a technique without mentioning it first. Yeah. If I'm showing an entry for a leg locks, I'm like, all right, we hand fight them first. We get 2-on-1 grips. I always stress the 2-on-1 grip really importantly, especially from the seated position. Like when you're sitting down, getting a 2-on-1 grip, and just saying, hey, these are the positions you're going to get. And then once they start defending these, you're going to start seeing everything else open up, right? If I get a 2-on-1 grip and this guy yanks it back really hard, his legs just become they're right there. So who cares about the entries or any of the other cool, flashy finish parts? Like, you're not getting there without that. So you need to concentrate pulling and pushing, hand fighting, pulling, pushing, dragging, all those things. And sets up everything. So I don't show any of my techniques, especially in my no-gi class, without first going over extensively like how we get to that position in the first place. I feel like I said earlier, I feel like a lot of problems that people run into, and I know I ran into it, and my students ran into it when I wasn't teaching it, right? Is that I was like, okay, here is, I guess I use this a lot, like here's Ashigarami, here's single leg X, right? And okay, I bend his knee, there's the outside heel hook. He goes the other way, oh, there's the sweep, right? Oh, these are great moves, but like, you know, you have guys train that, right? And then they go into a match. I'm like, all right, I'm going to get him into single leg X. And maybe I showed how to get in there, but I totally skipped the part where we do this.
Yeah. Where we fight for
3
those
minutes.
grips. Yeah.
You know? And just never leaving it out of my instruction and always stressing its importance and that this is your best tool to get from point A to point B. Like you said, a vehicle. Vehicle is a better word for it, like transportation.
Yeah.
You know?
And man, if you teach in that way, I just think it allows your students, especially some students are just going to be more creative than you. They're just going to see things differently than you. It allows them to then go, okay, so that's the problem. I can solve it this way a little bit differently, you know? And I think that there is more of a range in grappling than we have always, at least as coaches for a long time, acted like there is between the person doing the move and the coach doing the move. You know, there's just that you can accomplish the same goal, but it look quite different if you both understand what that goal is really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure to ask this. We're getting, at one point, not to bring Bryce up again, but he flashed me with the flashlight to let me know. But he's also, I think he flashed me earlier too. So I think that he did flash me 2 times. Okay, so he's a weird guy, man. You got to watch Bryce. That freaking guy.
He's flashing people. I don't know if I'm going to watch him very closely.
But anyway, do you have any, and I wish that, I'm sure that when we have you and Sean on, we can talk much deeper about this. Do you have any habits that you have been trying to instill in athletes? And if so, any ways that you've been trying to do that? Or do you have any habits that you always try to instill in athletes and any ways that you normally do that?
Being in condition has been my biggest one recently.
Yeah.
Never getting tired.
Yeah.
Like that's I think that if you stay up to date on your fitness, you know, you make sure you're rolling a lot, right? Because, man, my least favorite thing is to watch my students walk off the mat after like 3 or 4 rolls and be like, oh, you don't have good today.
Yeah.
You know, trying to instill that like you have to roll a lot to get in shape, you know, and then not get tired, because it's the one thing you can control in the fight that like no one can really take away from you, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm in shape and I don't ever get tired and my guy gets tired, he could be significantly worse than me and I can still beat him. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen it. It happens in the gym all the time. You know, some of my best guys lose to my most conditioned athletes. So that's a big one. And I think that's even bigger for MMA than it probably is for jiu-jitsu, because MMA is significantly more tiring.
Yes.
So those kind of habits. And distance control, always a big one. Distance control and closing distance and practicing closing distance and drilling closing distance constantly. Like, don't just show up and, you know, drill how to finish the takedown or like how to throw strikes. You need to drill specifically how to close distance.
When you say a lot of rounds,
what
is a lot of rounds? Like in a context of a week, how many rounds do you think jiu-jitsu wise you should be doing? And is there variation of the time that you're doing it? Kind of what would that look like?
Well, in our advanced class, we do 10-minute rounds. So those are really long rounds. We do 3 of them back to back. And then we have a class in the middle and all those guys stay in. Then we do 5-minute rounds.
Okay.
That's a lot of rounds.
That is a lot of rounds.
A lot of rounds, but you know, a lot of MMA fighters, and they're in very good shape.
Yeah.
But those are a lot of rounds. But then generally, I tell them minimum of 5 if they're going to roll, and especially if they're only coming like 3 days a week.
Yeah.
You know, then generally 5. But yeah, we put a lot of emphasis on sparring.
Yeah.
A lot of maybe not as much MMA sparring because it's very bad for your head.
Of course.
You can't think very straight. You know? already feeling those effects.
Yeah.
Getting canceled left and right.
Dude,
Dumb stuff.
I know. You should just, it's CTE, man. You can't,
CTE.
I can't help that I'm so controversial. It's CTE. That's what the C stands for.
Exactly.
So
I try to make the drilling portion of the class, since we roll so much, I try to make the drilling portion of the class more conceptual than anything else.
Okay.
Rather than, obviously I do the standard show a technique kind of deal, but I like to let my guys just kind of play when they're drilling. I'm not a really big stickler on you have to do this move exactly this way. And that's one habit I like to instill, like be creative and play around.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say keep it playful, because when we roll in certain, especially in the competition class I just mentioned, I'm like, this is not time for those 3 10-minute rounds. I'm like, this is not the class or the time to work a bunch of new stuff you're trying to submit your partner. It's competition style. And then in the next class, you play a little bit more. But, having a healthy balance between those two things of competitiveness and playfulness, and also, drilling to fit you more than like what you said earlier, like how I do it and you do it are two different ways, are going to look a lot different. The mechanisms are going to look a lot different. And that's something I feel that jiu-jitsu really does need, is like to move away from and I think it's doing that at rapid speed, the dogmatic approach.
Of course.
This doesn't work, this works, this doesn't work. Move away from that and just let your students do stuff.
Yeah.
Who's the most most widely known coach is John Danaher, and when he talks, I listened to an interview of him talking recently about his relationship with Henzo.
Yeah.
And he's like, Henzo never told me that I couldn't not do something.
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't work. All I had to do was come in and prove that it works. And if I couldn't prove that it works, it's not like he even said, don't ever do that. He was like, well, see if you can fix it and come back and see if you can prove it works again. And I'm the same way. Like, if my students can prove that it works, I have little conflicts with them all the time. But if they can prove that it works, I'm not going to say anything about it. But, just that understanding that everybody's got a kind of different game, and they're going to do slightly different variations of different things, and to play around more and be creative with your techniques, and not get too married to the idea of one way of doing things.
And I think something that was always helpful for guys like you and I is we started jiu-jitsu really young.
Yes.
And then we both have superhuman flexibility. And so that when you go to being a coach, you realize very quickly, these certain things that I do, they do require the amount of flexibility that I have. And then in jiu-jitsu, you typically would always hear people be like, you don't have to be flexible to berimbolo. I'm like, dude, I have 60-year-old guys who hear that. And they're like, you don't? And then their backs are broken. You needed to be more flexible than you are.
You have to have a degree of flexibility.
Yeah, you do. There is like a range that you need to possess.
Much harder to get the older that you get.
Oh, yeah.
Significantly.
It really is. And that's like starting jiu-jitsu at a young age kind of keeps you flexible a lot of times.
I was flexible, always kind of bendy that. But
I was too. I always, it never really mattered.
Because we were nerds.
It was because we were nerds, sitting with our legs crossed playing video games.
We had to defend ourselves from bullies somehow.
By flexibility.
I don't know how that correlates. But.
Yeah, I could see it. There's something there.
Yeah.
I could see... that made me lose my train of thought on that one. I could see how flexibility could help you against bullies.
Yeah.
I just could see with like guys like us that had certain physical attributes you start to teach and you go, my guys don't have this, but they can actually get this idea to work even not being flexible. They just have to use something different, or they have to do something a little bit different. And that really for me was a big point that I started going, I can't just teach so matter of fact that it has to be this way. It has to start, we have to do it differently. How long have you been teaching that way?
Honestly, only for a few years, really.
Me too.
Like it's a newer thing. I used to teach more like the standard way. I think who really changed that was, oddly enough, Ben Askren.
Yeah.
He went on this rant once, saying that like how jiu-jitsu schools are doing it wrong.
Yeah.
He's like, they're doing it wrong. And then like I started training with this wrestling coach that I was talking about, and he trains completely different as well. It's like he's got this whole different system that what jiu-jitsu thinks, and I'm like, man, it might actually be better. because, that's the problem with traditional martial arts, which, jiu-jitsu really is. It's like the traditional part of it. They want to keep it all the same going forward. And then you get a sport like wrestling that's not traditional at all. And they'll adapt and take anything. They'll steal and take any method of doing it. But Ben Askren was more like, there needs to be more like active drilling, like not just show the technique roll. You need to talk about concepts. You need to have guys drill this semi-live. Like you need to build upon one technique upon another. They can't just know one technique. That fails. What do you do? Oh, well, that's next Tuesday, or that's a year from now, where I'm going to start covering that. Like I said, playing more around with the position, and yeah, that relatively recent that I've done that. I've put more of a emphasis on positional sparring and more of an emphasis on playful, more live-esque drilling. Not necessarily live, and definitely not with my beginner guys, but talking about the more advanced guys. Like when we're drilling, we're kind of flowing through stuff and solving problems, because that's really what wrestlers do. They play wrestle. They just go, they shoot at our legs, they play around, and then they kind of figure stuff out on their own.
So Mop.
Yes.
Have we talked about designated winner?
No, I don't think so.
I didn't think so.
No.
And so this is this is not where I was going to finish with, but this is a perfect thing on the podcast. So it's something big that I've been talking about on the podcast for a little over a year now, and we've been doing at my gym for probably 2 years, is this training method. And I always say that it's something that I'm noticing forward-thinking gyms doing already, but it doesn't have a name. And so came up with the name, we call it designated winner. And what it is basically, the simplest way to explain it is it's a positional spar, but one person wins every time. And that person, the other person, gives a certain percentage of resistance. And so it gives it like more of a formula to be like, okay, so we're starting in this position, and we are, I'll teach some knee cut stuff, I'll teach some Toriando stuff, and I'll go, okay, now we're gonna go into De La Hiva, and you're just going to get reps, and the guy's going to give you 20%, 40% resistance, something like that. Does what you were talking about sound anything?
It sounds identical.
Yeah, that sounds identical.
Yep, especially with my MMA fighters. We do like, get-ups, and I'm like, all right, you're going to take the guy down, and then you're going to let him get up, but you're not going to let him get up,
That's
better way to put it. Designated winner.
Designated winner.
A notebook.
And so, don't worry, I'll text it to you. Man, from a branding standpoint, designated winner, man. Shoot,
You got to patent that.
Yeah, I really should. I need to trademark that. I don't know how.
You can sue anytime.
That's a good idea. Hey, Bryce, Google how to trademark something. Okay, copyright, whatever that is. But yeah. Designated winner, man. That has been just for me, and just like putting a name to it and explaining it to the people that listen to the show. I've gotten so many messages from coaches saying, wow, we did something similar, or coaches going, I've never heard of anything like this. I want to implement it right now. And to me, it really is just a matter of understanding that there is a huge difference between performance and developing skills. Yeah. And I think that most people just don't think of it that way. They think about their performance, especially jiu-jitsu guys. It could be the same for MMA, but I'm not good at speaking from that perspective. But for jiu-jitsu guys, I think so much about their wins and losses in the gym each night, right? Which is, which can be important, which can be something you can focus on. But they don't think about like what the best guys are doing. The people that are getting best in jiu-jitsu are developing skills most of the time, and then they perform every once in a while. And then they care about it when they're focused on performing. This is my hard day of training. I want to win these rounds. You care if you lose those rounds, and you should. But most of the other days, you could lose every round. But if you cared more that you were developing skills, it wouldn't even matter to you. Do you notice a ratio for let's say specifically for MMA and for jiu-jitsu, of those type of skill development drills versus how often you're actually having them train performance-wise, train to the death?
Like I said, there's that one class.
Yeah.
My Tuesday night, 5 o'clock class where I pretty much tell them this is not the time. This is not the class for that. But pretty much every other class, that's emphasize that almost exclusively. I'm like, you guys need to just worry about, and like I get tapped off by my students all the time when I'm trying to learn and pick up new stuff.
Of course.
You know, it's just like throw myself into the fire. And, you know, I think it's really important for the instructor to do that too. Because I don't know if I've trained with some that have been like, they cannot lose a round to their student.
Oh yeah.
No way. And it's 100% all the time. But I mean, if your student sees you do something like that and then like you're cool about it, it's no big deal. Not even angry about it. You just go on. Maybe you put yourself right back in it to try and figure it out. That's a good way to spread that throughout your school. But yeah, it's the most important part of it. It's not, you're not trying to win every single round. There should be certain classes where you are, right? Where, okay, this is the class where we perform. You need to treat this like almost a competition. Like in jiu-jitsu, it's easy, you know, because like you can go really hard and not get hurt. If you put a bunch of advanced guys in a room together, because it's an invite class, I only let certain guys go to that class, you can kill each other and nobody's going to get hurt most of the time. Yeah. In MMA, it's a little bit harder, but you don't really want to work on stuff when you're getting that can result in you getting punched in the face. So you have to have lighter classes just for that, where you guys are sparring, but you're not really sparring. And then you got your harder ones where nobody's ever going to work on stuff during the harder ones because they don't want to get their nose broke or blasted or knocked out or anything like that. But yeah, you need to have a really good ratio, and I think you should spend way more time developing skills than you spend being competitive with your peers and your students. I really even think even in those competitive rounds, you should still be kind of lighthearted with it. You know, like not too competitive. You're not trying to beat your training partner. You're trying to beat the guy that your training partner represents. Yeah. You know, it's totally different thing. But you just build an atmosphere where that's all okay. And then I think those are the schools that are doing really, really well. You know, I agree. Like, you know, we'll go back to Danaher because I think he's a good staple point for no-gi jiu-jitsu for like, you know, success is like, you know, they do a lot of positional sparring, and, you know, you'll hear guys get tapped out left and right by guys that they would normally not get tapped out at, but he makes them do it because if you don't make them do things like that, or think like that, they're always just going to try and win every single roll like it's a competition. But if you're getting tapped out every day regardless, not as big of a deal. No problem. Yeah, it's just going to get better. I think that this will probably be a great place to start the next time you're on the show. Yeah, great time.
But let's just, I know you have to get going. You've got, where is your...
We're going to Iowa, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I got Jared Medley fighting.
All right.
And we were supposed to have a lot more people on the card, but it's a season of injuries, I guess.
Oh, man, that's never fun. Do you have anything you would like to say to finish?
Well, you know, in regards to my recent cancellation, I know I offended a certain somebody very badly and resulted in my cancellation. I just wanted to take this time to not apologize for that at all in any way, shape, or form. And I would do it again if I could.
Okay.
I don't use your name, but I'm not allowed to.
I don't think I'm going to give any context to the story to anyone who doesn't know. I think I'm just going to keep...
Well, you don't want to get sued.
I'm just going to shake my head up and down. Well, I'm glad you went that way with it. So if somebody enjoyed your perspective, you know, kind of as you, the last time you were on the show, you know, we keep it pretty lighthearted and pretty fun. And I think people would enjoy that. Yeah. If they wanted to check out your YouTube channel, how would they do that?
Well, it's Wolves in Training Center. Pretty simple. That's
simple. That's easy.
That's the name
Wolves,
of the gym.
Spelled like wolves.
Yes. Not with an F, guys.
Yeah.
You went to your parent, the government makes you go to school, all right? They teach you a thing called spelling, you know? Wolves is with a V, not with an F.
Okay, so I was actually, it's funny that you started doing that. I went to private school, and I also wasn't sure of this. So I know it's wolves, but then is it wolves apostrophe after the S?
S apostrophe.
S apostrophe. Okay, that's what I thought. All right,
it's possessive.
Yeah, so
yes. I have a journalism degree.
Ooh.
Yes, exactly.
Do you use that?
No.
You used it now. You used it right there when you.
I use it to correct people online.
I use it to win arguments.
Exactly. I use it to research my opponents in discussions that don't really matter to anything.
That makes sense. And how often have you been posting consistently on the Wolves Den YouTube
For
channel?
about 5 months now, 4 or
All
5 months.
right.
Yeah. Been a little less consistent recently with the new gym stuff because, like I said, I edit everything. So
Yeah.
we've been churning out like 1 episode a month. But hopefully, once everything settles down, I'll be churning out two to three a month.
What's the next episode?
Let's see. I just went to Iowa. I think Strange Hands is the next episode.
I thought we already did Strange Hands.
No. I haven't. No. I meant that's gonna be released. Like it'll be a full episode documenting that. I haven't had that out yet.
You haven't?
Nope. It's
Holy smokes.
We
So
are in
I
catch-up
could have
mode.
said stuff
Yeah.
that I didn't realize that I said on that one.
Yeah. We don't know yet. It's good. They're going to release. Well, that interview is in there. We're almost done editing.
Gosh,
So
I thought that had passed.
I think Fuji and Strange Hands is the Fuji tournament that we did a while ago, and Strange Hands is the last content now. So we're a few months behind. It was running a month behind, but like I said, the new gym happened, so we're running a few months behind now. So that's what I'm saying. We're going to try and bust out a bunch of those
Man.
coming up. Yep.
Well, that's exciting. I look forward to it. I hope that I don't get canceled like you were for a while.
I mean, I think I still am canceled.
Not here.
Not here. No.
But you were canceled here for a bit.
Yeah, we had to let the controversy die down.
We did.
You know, there were posters. There was mean, rude comments.
I can only imagine.
There was photoshopping.
I can only imagine what that soundbite gets me
Yeah, there were memes.
at the end of this episode.
Probably a lawsuit.
Bryce, you may have to. I need you to copyright designated winner, and I need you to edit that part out. Okay.
Yeah, edit that part out. Send it to me though, because I'm gonna put that in an episode. That's going right on my Instagram.
All right, Mop. Thank you for being on the show,
appreciate
man.
it.
Always enjoy talking to you, buddy.
Yep, sounds good. Yeah,
And I look
appreciate
forward
having
to the next one, whether it's in your studio or in mine.
it. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Look forward to the next one, buddy.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. We're good, Bryce? All right. Yeah, I thought it went great, man.
Yeah, I thought so too. We're nerds.
Bryce, did you think so?
Yeah.
Or did you hate it?
Not yet. It was solid.
You're lying.
We did terrible. You don't have to lie to us. But when you work for me, you'll have to lie to us consistently.
Yeah, I think when we trade you, Welcher, we're gonna trade you for Joel.
Yeah.
Joel Getters, man.
Joel didn't live here anymore. Joel trains at Donner's.
What?
Boston, yeah. He moved too.
When?
I didn't know about that.
Like a month ago.
Damn.
His girlfriend got like a job at a place there, and they just moved right down there.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
What's the?
He's like messages me all the time about Nick Ortiz. He always hangs out with Nick Ortiz. Like apparently Nick Ortiz has taken a liking to him, so I figure Nick Ortiz probably has really bad hygiene as well. So
I can see that.
but yeah, he moved down there. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yep. Very awesome.
How do you feel about it?
Not fine.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Go for it. I'm pretty confident in this staple that I have right here. That's
Of course.
And like we've just been adding a lot more athletes.
Mm-hmm.
We've been getting a lot more athletic dudes. So I got a staple of soon to be blue belts that I think we're gonna do pretty well.
I guess, I mean, how do you feel about it considering, like, he's at a point that he probably should just stay.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
If
Probably.
you're-
He's not going to listen to anything like that.
I get that.
That's not him.
Yeah.
When he lost to what's his name?
Andy
Morella.
Varela, yeah, Varela.
And he walks off the mat and he goes, "This is just one roadblock in my path to one day beat Gordon Ryan."
All right.
All right, Joel.
I like that.
So yeah, he's moving there. Who knows?
It could be, yeah. It could.
A few cycles of steroids.
Mm-hmm. It could be
Could
the
do
move.
really well.
You probably could. You probably would do great.
Think about how fucking strong that dude would be on steroids. Everybody already thinks he's on steroids. Like other gyms are all like, look at that guy, he's on steroids. Look at his back.
Oh,
Look how
dude.
strong he is. And I'm like, well, his backing is from terrible height.
Yeah, he just doesn't shower.
Yeah.
But yeah.
He could. Steroids probably do Joel really, really well.
I
honestly.
do.
Do everybody really well.
He's got such a physical style. Well, I mean, some guys don't have that physical style. They don't really need it as much,
For sure.
you know. And then there's guys with a really physical style like Joel.
Yeah, Joel would be scary on steroids.
One time, Joel heel hooked me, and he wasn't even in the position to heel hook. He literally just pinched his knees around my leg, while I had like
And that is the episode. I just want to thank you guys for checking this one out. Thank you to Mop for being on this episode. Like I said in the episode, I will make sure to link his latest YouTube vlog. They're really fun to watch. And yeah, I think you guys will like them. You'll like the guest starring Josh McKinney in his latest YouTube vlog. And even fighting a head nod guy, one of his guys is. And so I'll let you guys check that one out. It really is good. And yeah, thank you to Mop for being on the show. I can't wait to have Mop and hopefully Sean on the show next time we get the chance to. Obviously, Mop didn't ask before he volunteered Sean, but hey, it's not my problem. You know, I don't know how their relationship works, but hopefully we can get both of those guys on the show. I think that would be a very fun episode. And that's kind of, at some point this year, that's going to be a big theme that we run with, is kind of the coach and student relationship. I think it's a unique relationship, and one, I'm going to be able to talk to some of my students, maybe even some of my students that aren't black belts, and that'll be really fun. But then also getting to talk to other coaches, maybe some really high level coaches, and get to talk to some of their main students and the main people they've been working with. And so be on the lookout for those episodes. Once again, thank you to Mop for being on the show, and thank you for your heartfelt apology at the end of the episode, Mop. And that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Make sure, don't forget, 50% off going on for the entire month of May on every single course at simplifyingjujitsu.com with promo code NEWSTUDIO. And that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I hope that you laughed some in today's episode. That was really a big purpose of it. And most importantly, I hope that today's episode helps you guys suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu. Have a great day, guys.